Welcome to Ghostly.
Was the Wizard of Oz cursed?
Ghostly is a podcast that comes out every other week. In each episode, we take a ghost story or paranormal event and look into its complete history. Rebecca then gives us evidence proving that the story is real. And my job is to debate those pieces of evidence and get you, the listener, prepared to vote on if it's real or not. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. And as always, we're your host. I'm Pat.
And I'm Rebecca.
And we're back.
We're back.
Just like that.
You didn't have me trying to do the intro and fooled you.
People seem to like it, though.
I hope so. I don't. It's, a little bit of an audiobook tour, but
Sure.
I'm very glad to have you back in the studio.
Yeah.
And recording a new Ghostly.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, I got a kidney transplant on May 23rd, so I needed a little bit of time.
Yes.
I'm coming back maybe a little bit earlier than I thought, but I'm going to push through.
Yeah, there's a little strain in the voice.
It's a little bit difficult to sit up and be able to do this. So, but
Yes.
You know what? I want to return, so that's what it is.
And we're very excited to have you. Everything's been going well so far for you.
Yeah, everything's been going great. In a future episode, we might talk more about that.
Yeah. Well, I just in general recovered from surgery.
Everything is going great.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about the Wizard of Oz. So, people say that there's a curse on the Wizard of Oz, and that there's a lot of weird happenings. And this might be the most cursed movie in history.
It's definitely on the list.
Yeah.
We haven't done a cursed movie in a while.
We haven't. I was really excited to be able to do this one. And so here is a little backstory. I was friends with one of the Munchkins.
Really?
Yeah, I know it seems weird.
Just when you think you know Pat.
Yeah. So growing up, there was a little bar in my neighborhood, and it's
a little bar.
Well, yeah, and it's inappropriate in its name, but it was named by the owner of it. It was named the Midgets Club.
Okay.
And in there, they had like a bar that was normal size, but they had like a platform. So
okay.
Parnell was my friend, and he was the owner and bartender.
Wow.
And he was actually, if you watch The Wizard of Oz, he is one of the three that are dancing and singing when they I think it was represent the Lollipop Guild.
He was one of the Lollipop Guild?
Yes, he was the shortest of them. He's the one that's in the middle.
That was my favorite part.
Yeah,
of the Munchkin part.
He was the one in the middle of that.
Oh, so was he a nice guy?
He was a super nice guy. In fact, he got mad when I got taller than him.
Oh, because you were a kid.
Yeah, I was a kid. My dad used to go into this bar, and he would make me drinks like the Spider-Man and the Hulk and the Superman, which usually involved Coke and some kind of mixture of maraschino cherries.
Nice.
Yeah, it was either 1, 4, 6, whatever I decided that drink was, and he would memorize whatever it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good guy.
Yeah, he was really good, and I knew him for many, many years. And he talked about doing the Wizard of Oz, and he talked about how great of an experience that he had. And there's a lot of stories about the Munchkins, when they recorded and their misbehaviors. Well, Parnell was not part of that.
Yeah,
he was a good guy.
Yeah,
and he was married too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, his wife went on to do something in Indiana. They did this like parade or something like that every year, and she would be there in like in honor of Parnell.
Oh, cool!
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
all right. So you've got a personal connection.
I have a personal connection to the Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
Made in the 1930s. All right, so this is the part of the episode where we would do shout outs. We have paused Patreon, so there's no new Patreon members.
It will be back.
It will be back as of July 1st. So the only way right now to get on a shout out would be to give us a review on Apple Podcast, and sadly we didn't have any while I was out.
Okay.
So the other way would be and will be to sign up for Patreon. Just go to ghostlypodcast.com after July 1st. And click on Patreon in the menu bar, and we have a lot of different tiers to choose from. all within reasonable price range.
Oh, yeah. And if you just want to give us $1 just to give us some support, if you want to become a VIP Patreon and be able to record live with us each month.
Absolutely, yeah.
We also, you can also just get a whole bunch of our Ghostly X episodes.
Yeah.
If you like the guests that we have, we've actually done interviews.
Oh, yeah.
With a lot
of those guests. Yeah.
Almost all of them. So you can learn more about them and what they believe, what they don't believe. They're really cool. And then we've just done some other series and some fun things over there.
We did a series on what was it that we did? Secret Societies.
Secret Societies.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites.
That was a lot of fun. So, so definitely check out Patreon. We also don't have any listener mail stories today. So we want to hear your stories. So please send them to us.
Yes. It doesn't matter if we've read your story before. If you have another story to tell us, we're more than happy to. All you need to do is email us at info@ghostlypodcast.com or use the contact us form right on ghostlypodcast.com. Or one of our favorite ways is to get ghost stories in the actual mail. You can mail it to P.O. Box number 264 in Geneva, Illinois 60134.
Yes. All right. So we do have some polls to talk about.
Oh, no, not the polls. Come on. I just came back. I think I'm really sore right now and I can't do the polls.
No, we got to do the polls. That's
Okay.
that's the whole thing, right? And in case anyone forgot, because it's been a little while, we're not obviously doing polls on the stories.
Yeah.
This was the Paris catacombs or catacombs. Catacombs.
Paris, they're going to be hosting the Olympics, right?
Yes. So keep that in mind. We have yes 54%.
Ooh.
And no 46%.
Wow. That was a close one.
It was a close one.
And the overall rating, because people can, rate how
Just like
haunted
we
they
do?
believe it is.
Yeah.
It's a 4.3 out of
Okay.
a possible 10.
That's, pretty decent.
Yeah, it's right there towards the middle.
There you go. All right. Okay. And you'll be able to vote on this one that we're doing right now about the
Yes.
Wizard of Oz. So if you go to ghostlypodcast.com and click on the polls or ghostlypodcast.com/polls, any of those will work. We'll have it on social media. So definitely look for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I do have a quick ghost story for us.
Ooh.
It's not really a ghost story because, again, this is about cursed.
But this is a spooky tale from Rebecca.
Spooky tale from Rebecca. Yes.
It's time for a spooky tale from Rebecca.
I have always known that what I do is dangerous, that I might get hurt. Though, really, most of the time, what I do isn't anything too risky. But I probably should have seen this one coming. After everything else that's happened, I shouldn't be surprised it's happened to me too. In fact, my nurse just told me that poor Buddy was in this very room a few weeks ago. Here's what happened. I was on the set of the movie I'm working on as a stunt woman. I can't tell you the name, but it's a really odd one, different than anything else I've worked on. The actress I stand in for is great. I mean, she is such a nice lady, but when she is in character, watch out. So a month or so ago, there was an accident with her, and she got burned. Yesterday was her first day back on set. So it was mine too. We were filming a scene where they wanted smoke to come out of the broom she was riding. Okay, you got me. I'm playing a witch. Well, the actress, she flatly refused to do it. I mean, there is nothing they could say that would calm her down. They explained all the safety precautions, but she just kept saying no. And to be honest, I don't blame her, based on the fact that the last time things didn't go so well and she was out for weeks. I admit I had concerns too, but I mean, this is my job. And I thought it probably should be me doing it. The first 2 takes were great. There was a pipe in the broom that spewed out smoke, and it was working fine. Until the 3rd take. That time, it exploded and caught fire. Meaning, I caught fire too. I'm here. I made it. I survived. And I'm thankful for that. But they've told me that I'll never completely heal. I'll carry the scars forever. I think everyone on this film will carry the scars.
Wow. So is that based on any reality?
That is based on something that happened to someone on the film.
Okay. All the details are?
Yep.
Wow, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, I'm going to give you the history.
Facts, facts. From a skeptic point of view. Facts, facts. He presents it all to you. Facts, facts, facts.
All right, let's get into the Pat Facts.
Pat facts.
The movie The Wizard of Oz was based on a book written by L. Frank Baum. Baum was born Lyman Frank Baum in New York in 1856. He was born into a devout Methodist family. He was German and what was referred to as Scots-Irish and English. Have you ever heard of Scots-Irish?
I mean, I guess, yeah, maybe.
Well, they're a very specific group of people. Scots-Irish are American descendants of Ulster Scots people, predominantly Ulster Protestants, who immigrated from Ulster, Ireland's northernmost province, to the United States during the 18th and 19th century.
Okay, got it.
So I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
Baum was the seventh of 9 children of Cynthia Ann and Benjamin Ward Baum. Only 5 of the 9 children survived into adulthood, but that was pretty common back in those days, unfortunately.
It was.
Lyman was the name of his father's brother, but Baum always disliked it and preferred his middle name, Frank.
You know, I actually know someone named Lyman who also does not like the
Really?
name and goes by a different name.
So maybe we should stop naming children Lyman. If you're a Lyman, please let us know if you go by that or your middle name.
Yes.
His father succeeded in many businesses, including barrel making, oil drilling in Pennsylvania, and real estate.
Those are very different things.
So but they had a lot of money though.
It sounds like it.
Baum grew up in his parents' expansive estate called Rose Lawn, which he fondly recalled as a sort of paradise.
I've always wanted to live somewhere that had a name.
Well, you could name any place you live.
Well, I guess.
You name it Rebecca's house. Frank was a sickly, dreamy child, tutored at home with his siblings from the age of 12. He spent 2 miserable years at Peekskill Military Academy, but after being severely disciplined for daydreaming, he had possibly a psychogenic heart attack and was allowed to return home. So psychogenic is when you have a condition, but you're so freaked out about it, you make it even worse.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, and again, somebody that could write Wizard of Oz does not belong in a military
No,
school.
definitely not. Baum started writing early in life, actually, possibly prompted by his father buying him a cheap printing press.
Oh, how fun would that
His
be?
father just bought him a printing press. Baum's true love was the theater.
Oh, okay.
A local theatrical company duped him into replenishing their stock of costumes on the promise of leading roles coming his way.
Uh-huh.
In July 1888, Baum and his wife moved to Aberdeen, Dakota Territory. So that's in South Dakota, where he opened a store called Baum's Bazaar.
Oh.
His habit of giving out wares on credit led to an eventual bankruptcy of the store. So,
He was a nice guy.
but you can't open up a store and give out all your stuff for free.
And say, pay me later. It's totally
exactly.
fine.
Gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Baum's description of Kansas in the Wonderful Wizard of Oz is based on his experiences in drought-ridden South Dakota.
Okay.
So there I kind of let on that the actual name of the book was The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And they sing that in the song too, don't they?
Yeah.
We're off to see the Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Baum moved to Chicago in 1891 around the Humboldt Park area.
That is amazing that there's a
Yeah.
Chicago
There is
connection.
always a
We did
Chicago
not pick
connection.
this thinking that there would be.
But actually, it makes sense because we have a park that
That's
is called
true.
Oz Park that has a bunch of stuff from it.
Yes, we do. Yep.
Yeah. So Baum took a job reporting for the Evening Post. In 1900, Baum and Denslow, with whom he shared the copyright, published The Wonderful Wizard of Oz to much critical acclaim and financial success.
That's so interesting. I didn't realize there was another person involved.
He didn't really do much of the writing, though. He was more like a financial partner.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And that I guess it makes sense though that it was immediately a success. The fact
Yeah.
that they made a movie of it and whatever.
Yeah, but
you
this is
know.
1900, so it went like almost 40 years before they made a movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the book was a best-selling children's book for 2 years after its initial publication. Baum went on to write 13 more novels based on the places and people of the Land of Oz.
Yeah, if you want to know like what happens to the Tin Man, what
Yeah.
happened, like it's there.
Yep.
You can read it.
I don't know if Dorothy's in any more of them, though.
She is.
She is? Okay.
She's not the main character.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
2 years after Wizard's publication, Baum and Denslow teamed up with a composer, Paul Tittengens, and director Julian Mitchell to produce a musical stage version of the book under Fred R. Hamlin.
Because he liked the theater.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, though, Baum never got to see his production on the big screen, as he died on May 5th of 1919 of a stroke. He was 62, and he was about 9 days before his 63rd birthday.
I mean, you know, that's a double-edged sword because so many times when they make a movie out of a book, they have to cut out so much.
Oh, yeah.
That I could see that, like, it'd be kind of cool to see your book on the big screen, but also maybe not.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's so when they finally decided they were going to make this movie, and I'm going to get into those details, but what I don't talk about is how many people submitted to be like a writer or a director of it. And one of them said, well, these fantasy movies are not doing well, so we're going to make it more true life. Like the Tin Man was actually a criminal that they put inside a tin suit for his punishment.
Weird.
Yeah, so that version obviously didn't happen.
Thank goodness.
But it wasn't until 1939 that The Wizard of Oz, that was envisioned by Baum, was released by MGM as a musical fantasy film.
Okay. Well, and they did have the musical that he wrote to
Yes.
maybe help guide them.
Absolutely, and he wrote a lot of the songs for it too.
Oh, okay.
Production on the film began when Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1937, showed that films adapted from popular children's stories and fairy tales could be successful.
How interesting.
And in January 1938, MGM bought the rights to L. Frank Baum's popular novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, from Samuel Goldwyn. The Wizard of Oz was primarily directed by Victor Fleming, but Victor left the production towards the end of the filming to take over another film that was having some issues. It was a film most people have never heard of. It was called Gone with the Wind.
Oh, I see.
Very similar to Wizard of Oz, right?
Yes.
Do you want to read the cast?
Oh, sure. So, The Wizard of Oz starred Judy Garland as Dorothy Gale, Frank Morgan as Professor Marvel, and the Wizard of Oz, the gatekeeper, the carriage driver, and the guard at the wizard's door.
Yeah, a lot of roles.
In case you didn't notice that. Ray Bolger as Hunk, a farmhand, and the Scarecrow. Bert Lahr as Zeke, a farmhand, and the Cowardly Lion. Jack Haley as Hickory, a farmhand, and the Tin Man. Billy Burke as Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. Margaret Hamilton as Elmira Gulch and the Wicked Witch of the West, which obviously the stage show Wicked is about her and Glinda. Charlie Grapewin as Uncle Henry. Pat Walsh as Nico, Clara Blandick as Aunt Em, and Terry as Toto, female dog.
Yeah. A couple of things. First of all, I didn't know that the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion were actually farmhands.
Oh, yeah.
So that gives into that it could be a dream, you know? Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
And Terry as Toto. What was interesting is the Munchkins made $50 $100 if they sang, right? But Terry, the Toto,
Yes.
made $125.
Oh yeah, no, and there's talk too, like
Yeah.
like Judy Garland barely made more than the dog.
Yeah, that's crazy. Several actresses were reportedly considered for the part of Dorothy, including Shirley Temple from 20th Century Fox, at the time the most prominent child star.
But she was starting to get a little older at that
Yeah.
point.
Deanna Durbin, a relative newcomer with a recognized operatic voice, and Judy Garland, the most experienced of the three. Officially, the decision to cast Garland was attributed to contractual issues,
Interesting.
especially because Shirley Temple was under contract for 20th Century Fox.
Oh, that makes sense.
That would have cost a lot of money to break
Sure.
that. Noel Langley, Florence Ryerson, and Edgar Allan Wolfe, not Poe, received credit for the screenplay, while others made uncredited contributions. So they just didn't give them credit for what they did.
Okay.
The music was composed by Harold Arlen and adapted by Herbert Stothart, with lyrics by Edgar Yip Harburg. The Wizard of Oz is celebrated for its use of Technicolor, fantasy storytelling, musical score, and memorable characters. So Technicolor, I believe, is that it wasn't black and white and it wasn't color; it was both.
Right. Yeah. I don't know all the stuff behind it, but I remember it was a newer technology. And did you know that the scene where Dorothy walks out into the Technicolor Land of Oz is a single shot?
Oh, wow.
Like they didn't splice it together.
Interesting.
What the black and white is her stand-in, her double or stunt double, and then literally like the camera kind of like whatever it moves, and that actress moves out of the way, and Judy Garland steps in color.
Interesting.
And comes out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a fact for that you might not know. What color were the slippers?
Oh, they're red.
Yeah, but they weren't. They were actually silver.
Well, I was going to say, I had heard that they were supposed to be silver. They made silver ones, but then they decided to do red because they thought it would look better.
Oh, I thought they just used the Technicolor for that.
Oh, maybe. Well, I also read that her dress is not blue and white. It was blue and pink.
Interesting.
But in Technicolor, the pink looks white.
Interesting.
So it could that
weird.
could be what happened with the.
Well, while the
slippers.
film was sufficiently popular at the box office, it did fairly well, but it failed to make a profit for MGM until its 1949 re-release, earning only $3 million on a $2.7 million budget, making it MGM's most expensive production at the time. That was one of the first movies I think that were had millions of dollars for the budget.
Right, which would be a lot now. Did it win any awards?
It did, yeah. It won a lot of awards. We'll talk about some of them in a little bit. The 1956 television broadcast premiere of the film on CBS reintroduced the film to the public. And according to the U.S. Library of Congress, it is the most seen film in movie history.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Most people have seen it.
Because it's on every year, or at least it used to be.
In 1989, it was selected by the Library of Congress as one of the first 25 films for preservation in the United States National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. They won't tell you which one it was. So, The Wizard of Oz has become the source of many quotes referenced in the contemporary popular culture. One of them being, it doesn't look like we're in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, so we're not in Kansas anymore.
You know any other ones that it is that they use?
I mean, it's stuff about the wizard,
Yeah,
I'm sure. Obviously, I'm trying. Of course, now you say this, my mind is going like, "I'll get you, my pretties."
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of them. So the film frequently ranks on critics' list of the greatest films of all time, and it is the most commercially successful adaptation of Baum's work.
Okay.
They did receive several awards, independently. I don't really talk about that much because we're talking about the film, not about a person. So.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I thought I saw that it was nominated for Academy Awards.
Oh yeah.
Right. It didn't win, I guess, for that. Right. It was just nominated.
I think Judy Garland actually won an award, like a juvenile.
Juvenile award. Yeah. Okay.
Like that was the Academy Award, but for children.
Yes, I think I've heard of that before. Yeah, and then it won Best Song for Over the Rainbow and Original Score.
Yeah, who would have thought that song, would be that popular and covered by so many other people?
And it almost wasn't included in the film.
Yeah, there's a lot of deleted songs, actually. I saw a list of them.
Wow. But yeah, there were two people, they threatened to quit if they were going to cut Over the Rainbow.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful song.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, so do you have anything to add to the history?
So I had just one thing that's kind of like a weird thing that I think a lot of people, well, I don't know, I think a lot of people might have heard this before, but just in case they haven't, but it's not really like a cursed thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that has
It's more like maybe a supernatural thing.
Or just like an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So it has to do with Pink Floyd and their album Dark Side of the Moon.
Absolutely.
So, it's one of those things that people start like in the 90s, especially when like the videos come out and all of that. So the Fort Worth Journal-Gazette writer Charles Savage wrote an article that suggested pairing a viewing of The Wizard of Oz with Pink Floyd's iconic 1973 album Dark Side of the Moon. So people were like, okay, let's do this. And they started syncing it up. And it reached popularity in 2000 when Turner Classic Movies aired Wizard of Oz, which allowed for audio synchronization, giving Dark Side of the Rainbow adherents to sync up into the album.
But I will say that you have to start it at the second lion's roar. And also, too, there is a version that's on the internet, okay? And it's on YouTube. So it'd be really easy to do. You just hit play and you don't have to sync up anything.
Right.
The problem with it is that they actually don't use the right version of Dark Side of the Moon. They use a deluxe version.
Oh, so it just doesn't match up.
Yeah, I was watching it and then all of a sudden I started hearing songs that I didn't think were on that album.
Then
I realized it's the deluxe album and that it only works for the first part of it, but it is still amazing. And I did this with Mondo actually once upon a time back in the day. Yeah. We might have had some sandwiches that night. I'm saying.
So if some of the coincidences in the synchronized version include Dorothy balancing on a fence in her Kansas yard as the line "balancing on both waves" plays in the song "Breathe," which goes to the foreboding music during Great Gig in the Sky that begins once Dorothy's house is swept up by the tornado. Money begins to play in the introduction to Oz, which was among the most expensive sets in MGM's history. And character cues line up with the line "Lunatic on the Grass" plays during an introduction to the Scarecrow. "Lunatic on the Grass" begins during the playing of "If I Only Had a Brain." So the only thing that's kind of weird is that Pink Floyd is like, this is nothing. We did not do this.
Okay. Yeah, I know Roger Waters. I've heard David Gilmour and Roger Waters both say that they didn't do it. But here's an interesting story, okay? And I heard this on the Joe Rogan podcast. This was Roger Waters said this. Roger Waters was driving and he got stopped or something like that. And he stopped because he saw a tour bus. And they were actually getting pulled over and people were searching the vehicle and stuff like that. And in there, they went into the back and they could hear Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon playing The Police.
Okay.
And they got into the door and in there was Willie Nelson watching Wizard of Oz synced up with Dark Side of the Moon, eating a sandwich. As he often does. He's known for eating his sandwiches.
Known for sandwiches.
Him and Snoop Dogg are known for eating their sandwiches. Yes. Yeah. And so that's what he was doing when the tour bus got pulled over. And there was the sandwich smell can be smelled all over the outside of the...
But it's Willie, so...
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Oh, wow. No, here's what's weird is that the drummer, Nick Mason, claims that, no, the album was inspired by The Sound of Music.
Oh, okay.
Which, I'm sorry, that doesn't
well,
make
it
sense
does. It does because of the war involved with that.
Oh, I guess that's true.
It's actually about World War I or World War II, I believe.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I guess that's it. And we're going to take a short break. And then when we return, we will get to the debate.
All right.
right, Rebecca, we're back. Are
We
you
are
ready for a
back.
debate?
Let's do this.
All right.
All right. So to say this movie's cursed, we got to look at all the things that happened while they were filming.
Sure.
So you gave us a really nice history, kind of surrounding the movie. Now we're going to get into the filming.
Okay.
Okay. So, and this first part is something that I talked about in my story.
Or you at least alluded
I
to.
alluded to it,
Yeah.
which is that the Wicked Witch, the character of the Wicked Witch in some
Yeah.
ways, caught on fire twice. So first, Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of the West, the one that we see, suffered second and third degree burns while filming a scene where the witch disappears in a puff of smoke.
Mm.
The effects crew used real fire for the scene, and Hamilton was instructed to exit the stage via a trapdoor. But the trapdoor's door drop got delayed, and the fire started before she had time to exit safely. So she got severe burns on her face and her hands. Her eyelashes and eyebrows on her right eye were completely burned off. Her skin completely burned off of her hand.
Oh.
The movie,
That's why she wore gloves.
yes, that
Yeah.
is why she wore gloves, because she couldn't even put the green makeup
Sure.
back on her glove or on her hands
Yeah.
when she came back.
Wow.
So they just put green gloves on, or whatever gloves on.
it was black gloves.
black
yeah.
gloves, yeah.
Black lace gloves.
Yeah. But the movie studio did not even send her home. Her friend had to come pick her up.
Wow.
And they called her the next day, like, hey, when are you coming back? It's like, no. Took her 6 weeks to recover. And then even when she came back, she had to wear the gloves because their nerve endings in her hand were exposed to the burns
Wow.
from the burns. So then this is where we get to the other burning,
Yeah.
which is, so she came back and they asked her right away to film another dangerous scene that involved a live firecracker. And so she refused to do it. So they had her stunt double, Betty Danko, who was the voice of the story
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
read. And Danko caught on fire with the broomstick. There was a pipe that was generating smoke because of the fire. They had the firework going on in there, and it exploded while she was on it. And she suffered severe burns and permanent scarring from the
Wow.
incident.
Well, one thing I want to say before I actually debate this is something about Margaret Hamilton. So she went on Mr. Rogers
She did.
and she showed everyone her putting on the makeup so that they would not be scared and to show them that movies are just make-believe, which is something we all need occasionally to know.
Well, I will also, first of all, I'm going to say, me,
Yeah.
terrified of the Wicked
Well, you
Witch
should
as
have
a
seen
child.
her on Mr. Rogers.
I don't know. I didn't. I just know I was terrified of her, and oh my gosh, she was seriously like nightmare fuel for me.
Wow.
As a kid, for sure.
Well, okay. So, as the quote goes, when you're playing with fire, you're bound to get burned, right? So, unfortunately, productions at this time were not up to what they are nowadays. And even nowadays, mistakes can be had. I mean, I don't want to mention any movies in particular with Alec Baldwin in them or anything like that, but, sometimes bad things happen in these films, and it's sometimes people's fault. Other times, it's just they thought this would work. I'm sure that they had never done anything like that before because fantasy movies just weren't a thing really before that. So I'm going to say that I think it's just a big coincidence that it happened to both of them. But I mean, she did, like, Margaret Hamilton did refuse to go on it again, and that should have been a trigger for Betty Danko, And I just feel bad that, she's like burnt in her thighs and everything. That's crazy.
It's so crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, this is one of those things, I think, for me with this debate where it's a little bit of a buildup of evidence. So yeah, like taken on its own,
Yeah.
these things could be mistakes, whatever. But I think as we add on more
Okay.
and more, we'll see.
Well, also, too, I would like to say that curses are a very interesting thing. If you believe that they are happening, they tend to get worse. And if you don't believe in them, they tend to not be as bad.
Tend to keep getting worse.
No,
still.
they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So the next area is that the makeup used on the human performers caused them to get sick. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I mean, there was like the masks were really tight or things were heavy. There was a lot. I'm not going to go into all of them. The green makeup was pretty bad. She had to be really careful. She couldn't eat. But one thing I just want to mention super quick is the horses, however. If you were worried about the horses, because the horse of a different color, it changes color, that was Jell-O, like powdered, the powdered Jell-O. And the horses loved it and kept trying to, or the horse loved it and kept trying to lick it off.
Oh, but that's horrible, though. They use Jell-O?
Well, I guess that's true if you think about what Jell-O is.
Never mind.
We're not talking about that.
Never mind,
okay.
kids.
I thought it was fun.
It didn't happen like that.
Okay. So, but the biggest issue with the makeup was with the Tin Man.
Yes.
So, Buddy Ebsen, known later for his role as Jed Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies.
Wow.
This is funny to think about.
Yeah.
But he was originally cast as the Scarecrow, and then they decided to make him the Tin Man.
Okay.
His makeup was...
He's more of a Tin Man kind of person,
Definitely.
I would say.
His makeup was made of pure aluminum dust.
Yes.
After 9 days of filming, he was hospitalized and he was not able to return. And so they recast the role with Jack Haley. And I found a quote from him that he wrote about how it felt. Do you want me to read it?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It was several days later when my cramps began. My first symptoms had been a noticeable shortness of breath. I would breathe and exhale and then get the panicky feeling that I hadn't breathed at all. Then I would gasp for another quick breath with the same result. My fingers began to cramp and then my toes. For a time, I could control this unusual cramping by forcefully straightening out my fingers and toes. One night in bed, I woke up screaming. My arms were cramping from my fingers upward and curling simultaneously, so I could not use one arm to uncurl the other. My wife tried to pull my arm straight with some success, just as my toes began to curl. Then my feet and legs bent backward at the knees. I panicked. What was happening to me? Next came the worst. The cramps in my arms advanced into my chest to the muscles that controlled my breathing. If this continued, I wouldn't even be able to take a breath. I was sure I was dying.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty bad.
Well, that to me is something really scary because when I, was going through dialysis and stuff, I would cramp often, and cramps are horrible. I mean, like I have not had any, like, even though I've went through the surgery, the cramps were worse than the surgery.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they usually went away pretty quickly.
But it's pretty painful.
But they were very painful at the time. But the second person though, they didn't have any problems, right?
Well, they did get an eye infection.
Okay.
But was able to be treated.
Okay. Yeah.
They changed how they did the makeup. So
I'm going to say if this was really cursed, wouldn't the second person also have it? Like the second Wicked Witch?
An interesting point. I mean, it didn't seem to get as bad with the second person.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to say, well, also another thing too that people don't think about is those people that paint themselves all in gold or in silver.
Yes.
That's really dangerous. You need to leave a part of your skin open.
Oh.
Because if you do not, you will die.
Why?
You'll get overheated or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Your skin can't breathe.
Yeah.
That was a problem with the Tin Man's costume, too.
Yeah.
They were like, there was no breathability with it at all.
Well, like a lot of them will put on a hat, but they will also leave the top part open so that, they can, that's one of the tricks of it. But so I'm going to, I didn't rate the other one. I'm going to rate the other one a 1 because,
the fire.
I don't think it was anything, but it was 2 people. This one I'm going to rate a 0.
Okay. I'm going to make the fire one. I'm going to give that an 8.
Okay.
I'll give this one a 6.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on. Now, you mentioned this a little bit that the director changed.
Yes.
So actually, The Wizard of Oz went through 4 directors. So Richard Thorpe was the first director, insisting that Judy Garland wear a blonde wig and thick makeup. Like, they kind of make her like more like adultish kind of.
Okay.
Anyways, So when Buddy Ebsen got sick, right, and everything shut down for a couple of weeks, they fired him and they replaced Thorpe with George Cukor, who directed My Fair Lady.
Oh,
And
okay.
he's the one that was like, no, like Judy Garland is popular because she's the every girl.
Yeah.
So natural makeup, and she's supposed to be like a younger girl.
Yeah, she is.
You know,
Yeah. Early teens.
12 even, or
Yeah.
13, you know. But then he left to go work on Gone with the Wind, and Victor Fleming took his place. At least that's what my source said. I don't, there's, you know, they kind of came and went.
Yeah.
And then he came back because he got fired from Gone with the Wind.
Oh, jeez.
But then another director, King Vidor, was responsible for most
King
of
Vidor.
for most of the sepia sequences.
Oh, wow.
And help with the post production part. So I guess he didn't really direct like
Yeah,
the
maybe
live action.
Maybe that
stuff.
was his specialty or
yes,
something.
yes.
So I'm going to just say that this, you know, first of all, the second one got fired because they almost killed a man.
Mm.
You know, so I'm going to say that was definitely part of it. I mean, these things happen sometimes on a film, and in these days, they did not know anything about filming a movie of this magnitude. All of their movies were just single things that would happen, you know, but this was like in color, and it was fantasy world and everything. They had to build this whole completely different world. So I'm going to say it's probably this is just something that would happen.
So how would you rate it?
0.
All right. I'm going to give it I'm going to give this one a 6 too. 4
Okay.
different directors. Sounds cursed.
Okay.
All right. Next is that people blame.
Well, then obviously Gone with the Wind should be cursed too, because they had multiple directors.
I don't know. I haven't
Okay.
looked into it.
All right.
All right. Next is people will blame basically the death of Judy Garland on Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Basically, the executives, Garland was 16 at the time. They put her on a really strict diet because and they forced her to wear like a corset because again they wanted her to look young, and they kept telling her she wasn't thin enough.
Yeah.
And they would force her to take pep pills to control her appetite. And then they also made her do all this exercise. Supposedly she had to be on a really strict diet of chicken soup, black coffee, and cigarettes.
Okay.
At that I'm
The age
not
of 16.
at the age of 16. But they did, whether or not that's true, I'm not sure. But what is definitely true is that they gave her amphetamines during the day and sleeping pills at night. So this
Yeah.
upper downer cycle.
Yeah, barbiturates.
Barbiturates. And basically this just continued and kept growing throughout her life. And she eventually died of a drug overdose in 1969.
Well, unfortunately, this is something that still happens to actors from time to time. You know, first of all, every woman that's in anything is told that they're too fat and that they need to lose weight, and that's really unhealthy. A woman's body isn't meant to look like that, you know. And yeah, this is still a common thing that happens. So
The drugging?
I mean, not that they prescribe it, but they highly suggest it. You know, so I'm going to probably say that this is sad. It's very sad, but that doesn't mean anything's cursed. I have not seen anything so far that is out of the ordinary that would make me think something's cursed.
It's all adding up. So what would you give it?
0.
Okay. I give this one a 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. A couple more things here. 2 actors that played winged monkeys crashed to the ground when the wires that hoisted them up in the air broke when the flying monkeys like swooped down to get Dorothy and Toto in the haunted forest. There were piano wires used and they broke. They couldn't protect the actors. They had to put men in these costumes that had harnesses and battery packs built in to make the wings bob up and down, and then fly them from the top of the sound stage to swoop down onto the set. And you basically hear them crashing to the ground. So,
All right.
and they were hurt.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that this is something that unfortunately they hadn't worked out yet. I mean, like, there are some horror stories of, like, even in wrestling. Like, there was a wrestler named Owen Hart that was supposed to go up into the catwalks and, be projected down. And it was supposed to be controlled by, like, a wire thing. And unfortunately, they used the wrong clasp. Not unfortunate. They actually did this on purpose to save money. They didn't hire a professional to do it. They just hired someone that thought that he knew what he was doing. And he didn't do rehearsal of it because he was scared. So, and he died. So these things happen, unfortunately. I mean, these two people didn't die, at least, I can say that. I'm just going to say that this was a very unusual production in its day. Nowadays, we probably would have better control over things. We would have professionals that would, be hired to be able to do stuff with them. Also, there's unions involved and stuff now. So I would say that things probably would be better now.
I mean, I agree. Definitely things are better now.
Yeah.
But I will say, if we're gonna go to wrestling,
Yeah.
I mean, a couple things. We have, so that happened to that Owen Hart.
Owen
Hart. If that happened to Owen Hart, and then also somebody else got hurt that night, and then the next time somebody, like, if it was like
this
a lot
isn't
of
over
things,
one day though. We're talking this production was a long production,
right? But like if it was over the season and there was just all sorts of things happening, it's a thing. And then we also did a whole episode on a family of cursed wrestlers. So I think
I'm gonna say that this does not, like, I would want something that is out of the ordinary to make me believe that this is cursed. This is something that could happen. So I'm going to say 0 for this one.
All right. I'm going to give this one a 7.
Okay.
All right. And last, but certainly not least, we have the most scariest one of them all.
Okay.
Which is the hanging munchkin.
Okay. Yeah.
So in the scene where Dorothy, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Tin Man are skipping down the Yellow Brick Road, singing "We're Off to See the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz," if you look in the back behind them, there are trees. And there is a dark moving figure that looks like it's hanging from the tree in the background.
This is between the 45-minute mark and the 48-minute mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is said that is an actor who hanged himself on set.
Okay.
Some think it's a munchkin that hanged himself after Garland declined to go on a date with him. Others say that it's a stagehand. I remember when this movie came out on VHS, but this was before the internet, so I have no idea how this rumor was going around. But it was a big thing where you were like, okay, I'm gonna pause it, and we're gonna go frame by frame by frame and go through it.
I did it
and
too.
it's definitely there.
I did it too, and I believed I saw it. But so let me tell you where this rumor starts from too. There was a lot of misbehavior that the Munchkins were supposedly responsible for. Now, given that they would usually make $5 a day doing whatever they did, they usually they were vaudeville actors, and they'd make $5 a day there. Now they're making $50 a day.
Gotcha.
So they increased, how much profit they're making by 10 times. That's a lot of money then, when you're used to sustaining at $5. So they were drinking a lot, supposedly, and they were vaudeville actors that didn't know how to act in front of real people. So, like with Dorothy, they groped her and stuff. There were a lot of reports of that.
Yeah, well, Dorothy or Judy Garland claimed that, though some disputed. It's hard to know.
Yeah, so, I'm just going to say that the actual fact is that during this production, they wanted to make the forest look real. So what they did was they rented some animals from the LA Zoo. A bunch of birds. So ostriches, cranes, and emus. And they just let them go in the background while they were filming the forest scenes.
Did anyone else just sing the emus? Sorry, we're not going to give.
What's the emu song?
Emu. Wait, I don't know. I'm not.
That.
Yes, you have. It's a car insurance commercial. That's all I'm gonna say.
Liberty. They're not a sponsor, but they could be. So what they believe it was is either a crane or an ostrich that was stretching. They do not believe it was a munchkin that's hanging, and then all sources say this.
Yeah, so I have heard that before. I'm going to be honest though, when I look at it, it's hard to see the bird.
I know. Well, here's another thing too that people don't think about. When this movie was in the movie theater, the quality of the movie was much better than when it became when it went out on VHS. They can only take the quality of the movie, which was actually behind the times than the VHS, because it was made in the 1930s.
Right.
Let's say 1940s even. So the quality was not as good, but when it was in the theater, it was at its best quality, but it only goes downhill from there. And they put it on VHS tapes, and sometimes they, will record, they'll dupe those tapes. So the quality goes down even more. And it went down so much so that that's what you get. Something stretching in the background like that looks exactly like what happens. And now that I know it, when I rewatched it, I can see like a bird picking its head up.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to have to watch it again.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go 0 on this one, although this is the most famous of all the stuff about the Wizard of Oz, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, again, I guess I got to rewatch it, so maybe I'll give it a 6.
All right. Well, I'm going to still go 0. What's your overall rating, though?
So my overall rating is a 7.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
My overall rating would be let's go 1. Because I did give a 1 for one thing. Seems like I have to do that then.
Yeah, well, it's your rule that we can't do a 0.5.
Yeah. So that brings us to the closing arguments. This is our last chance to convince you to vote our way. We are each given 1 minute of uninterrupted time. We will time each other on our cell phones to keep each other honest. Rebecca, are you ready?
I am.
And go.
So, as I've mentioned, I think to me, the curse comes from the confluence of evidence. The fact that there are so many things that happen, I think that's why it gets the curse reputation. Any one of these things, I think you can kind of, like say, it's just a thing that happens. But when almost every single person had something happen, whether it was their makeup made them sick or their, the special effect that they were involved in set them on fire or made them fall from a height. There is just always something that is happening. And the fact that some of them ended up in the same hospital that others had ended up in, and they're like, oh yeah, we had your coworker here, the other day. It's cursed.
Okay. You still had like 4 seconds left.
All right. Well, you made me nervous. So
I'm sorry.
I thought I had to hurry it up.
I'm sorry.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah. I will take away 4 seconds of my time then.
Okay. And go.
So to consider a movie cursed, there would have to be things that happen that you cannot explain. All of these things we've been able to explain. In fact, I would argue that a lot of productions, even today, if you look at the incidents that have occurred during the production of a movie, you might find things that would add up to make you feel that it's cursed. But not every movie's cursed. This is just a movie. And people believe it's cursed because of its fantasy nature. That's where I believe it comes from. And also, that it was the Technicolor thing. It gives it a different feel. So I'm going to say it's not cursed.
Okay.
So I want to thank everyone so much for listening. Please share us with your friends and family, as word of mouth is our best form of advertisement. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. And I like to take this time to thank all of our VIP producers, Andrew,
Alicia,
Becky,
Kim,
Ernie,
Cindy,
Kevin,
Jessica,
Alice,
Aaron,
Hope,
Rachel,
and Candy. On the next episode of Ghostly, we will be talking about, I probably won't be able to do this, so.
I put a little thing there.
Okay.
Père Lachaise.
Père Lachaise, which is a cemetery in Paris. We're going to be focusing a little bit on Paris because of the Olympics.
Exactly. We're going back to Paris.
Yeah, and it comes out on July 10th. Until then, stay ghostly.
Bye.